Anywho, it's roughly 10 o'clock, and I have no idea who's going to show up. Uh, yeah, it's one of those things. So, why don't we get started? Uh, David, why don't you read what you brought for us today?
Okay, today is a little bit different. I'm going to read you a brief poem in two languages. Now, you need to guess the language of the first one. And in between, there's a little story. And here's the poem. Mi
Okay.
staris kaj capis, la cielo estis lumigata, la cielo estis stelos si angi. Mi staris, mi ni siascial, sen desiro, sen volo, mi staris sur tiu silentia monteto, kaj regardis an la cielon gis, miaj oculos estis blindaj prostellos kaj semnova, mi regardis en la cielo. So does anyone have any idea what language that is?
Sounded like Latin.
It's not Latin. You're close.
Espanol,
Very close, but it's not Spanish.
Portuguese,
No, it's not Portuguese either.
Could you read another sentence, another line?
No, I was going to say Italian.
It's close to all those languages.
Okay.
But the real language that I was reading in was Esperanto.
Oh,
Yeah.
Esperanto, as some of you may know, was invented by a Dr. Zamenhof, who happened to be
Yes.
my great uncle. And one day, Mom was driving me around years ago, and she told me that years and years ago, Dad and his best friend Lee Erdy were traveling on a vacation. They stopped off in Cleveland at a hotel that was advertising an Esperanto convention. So they decided to check it out, and they walked in, introduced themselves to the organizer, and the dad said that his great uncle, which would have been my grandmother's uncle, was Dr. Zamenhof. And the organizer said, I am so honored to meet you. I would like you to attend the conference. Dad said, well, we'd love to. And he said, I'd love you to give a lecture to the conference. Dad said, I'd love to. I'd love you to give the lecture in Esperanto. And Lee almost collapsed at that point. Dad looks straight faced, said, I'd love to. Anyway, the fellow needs to go away to continue setting up the conference. As soon as he's out of earshot, Dad says, we have to get out of here now, fast. So they left, and they got in the car, and Lee said, where do we go? Well, let's go to Camp Moden, where we both used to work, and let's see what's happening there. We have the time. And that's where they went. And Dad went to, of course, the swimming counselor to see who was any beautiful women who were at the swimming place. And he bumped into a New Orleans girl named Edith Paylette. He fell in love with her. And by the time he ended his visit to the camp, he proposed to her. Mom was engaged to someone else at the time. So after a while, Dad didn't give up. He persuaded her to cancel that engagement and marry him instead. So that's the story of how my parents met. And I think most of you have heard the English translation of the poem, but I'll just read it to you anyway. So it turns out that it's Wendy's favorite poem of all. I stood and stared. The sky was lit. The sky was stars all over it. I stood, I knew not why. Without a wish, without a will, I stood upon that silent hill. and stared into the sky until my eyes were blind with stars. And still I stared into the sky. Thank you very much. And Rabbi, I want to wish you
Happy anniversary of the bar mitzvah,
yeah,
David.
happy birthday to you, and
Thank
happy
you.
anniversary of your bar mitzvah. And
Thank
we
you.
do have the honor that I have the honor that I share the same bar mitzvah as the rabbis.
Very good. Thank you, David. Thank you, Rabbi. And Rabbi, soon I watched the services last night on YouTube, and I think, yeah, YouTube, and it was really good. Really,
Thank you.
you did an excellent. It was light, and you said all the right things. It was really good.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Shabbat Shalom to everybody.
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom.
Hi, Rabbi Mary. Yes, Gail, go ahead.
Marty, before we start, I'd just like to remind people about rattlesnakes. My next door neighbor, where I used to have my house, I don't know if you saw it on the news, but she was the
Right.
one who got bitten. That was my neighbor Joyce. You know, she's still in ICU, but
Really?
she's going to be fine, but it's very painful and lengthy. So just please watch. She just stepped outside her gate and never rattled, never just hit her. That was it. And it was a big one. That thing was over 6 feet long.
Yeah,
Oh,
the snakes have had a good time over the past couple of years. And we had a couple of them mating in our backyard.
Did you watch?
No, I was on the phone with the,
Oh, okay.
and with the snake control.
No, we had one.
And the gal says, "There's only one." I said, "No, there are two." And she says,
Gail, I don't know if it was the same snake, but we had one it was in the temple parking lot.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, we've had them there before. Yeah.
The same day that the lady was bit.
Yeah.
In the neighborhood. I don't know if it was the same snake. By the time that we called and by the time that the fire department got there, it was nowhere to be seen.
Well, they got the snake that bit her. That's why we have a picture of it. It was huge. But the thing, now Joyce and I, lived next door to each other for, I don't know, 16 years. And every summer or spring, she'd get a couple or I'd get a couple, and the firemen would come and no big deal and blah, blah, blah. I even had one in one of my trees. But this one never gave her warning. Of course, she didn't see it. She opened her gate to step out and back, and she put her foot just out and that was it.
Wow.
Yeah, but they got a picture. I've got a picture of it on my cell phone. It is huge.
Wow. Just look down at the ground before you step out there. That's right.
Yeah, well, she just opened the gate.
Yeah.
So look your surroundings all the time.
Yeah.
That's right.
Like I see, Joyce and I have probably had a dozen of them over the years between us.
Well, I think we ought to.
Excuse me. Who is the phone number?
Oh, that's me, Rabbi.
Yeah.
That's me. It's Chris.
Chris, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling really, really good. I had a really good surgery. They got me walking up the very first minute that I woke up from the surgery. They stand me up and make me walk. And I can do pretty good. Almost, well, no, not really. I mean, I have no pain, which I am so grateful to God.
That's
no
good.
pain whatsoever, except like I feel sometimes like you bump into something and, you hurt. But the doctors are impressed how well I'm doing. I'm already in Green Valley. I asked to come here to the rehabilitation center in Sahuarita. I mean, in Green Valley.
I know. You're at Haven. I missed you.
Yeah,
I was there.
That's it.
Right.
Oh,
I was
okay.
there. I was there a few hours. When I was standing at the desk is when they got the phone call that you were on the way.
Oh, so you knew I was coming. How about that? Well,
Right.
That's what I like. My rabbi being totally in control of things. So I had a rough night last night because I tried to get used to this place, but I am so happy to be part again or listening. But of course, my hair's all sticking out in the air, and I prefer just to let you hear my voice. And I'm looking forward to the gathering again today.
Okay,
So,
great.
Oh, very good to have you. Oh, that's
thank
good.
you.
Thank you.
Now, what's that phone number that keeps coming with an X? And it's
That's
connected
Chris.
with
That's
the
Chris.
recording?
That's Chris.
That's
Yes.
Chris.
Good morning. Yeah, that's me.
But
I
it
don't
keeps
know that.
coming up and coming up.
Yes, it's because she is not on video.
No, I'm not on video. That will only see my name. I don't know how to fix that right off. And if you guys, it doesn't bother you, let's move on because I don't know how to fix it from here.
Okay, but so we're going to have to ask you to say excuse me or something if you want to
Oh, yeah,
chime in
that's
on the
right.
discussion. Okay,
That's right. I will.
thank you, Chris.
Thank you for that reminder.
Let me read our opening prayer. I'll do it in English today. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe. You have sanctified us through your commandments and commanded us to busy ourselves in things of Torah. Amen.
Marty,
Yes.
Amen.
if I may, there's some news to share.
Oh,
Um,
sure.
And maybe you said this before I was able to log in. It might be why Ruth Ann is not on the call right now. Apparently, Joe Leggett had a stroke last night,
Oh, my.
and she's up in the hospital in Tucson. It might be why Ruth Ann it is not with us. I don't have any more news other than that. And also, in case if you hadn't heard, Rabbi Harold Kushner, who wrote When Bad Things Happen to Good People, passed away yesterday.
Oh. Oh.
So
That's
just wanted to share the updates there as we will.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Oh, God.
I know
And
the
if I get a phone
birthday
call,
and
if I get any kind of update on Joe, I'll interrupt and let you know.
Thank you. Just relay from all of us our concerns and our hopes and prayers are with her. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
So it's boy. I used to recommend his book to many patients.
Absolutely.
And have their families
more than one book.
Yes. We have a little collection of his. He spoke in at Temple Emmanuel several times, and was in the past. He used to come with his family to for about I don't know how many weeks, but he used to spend some vacation time down here every year, and he would wind up providing services, to various congregations and like that. Very, very smart and wise man. So, and for Joe, I just hope she does get better soon.
Oh, my God.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, who knows where we ended our reading last week? I know we digressed towards the end. Gail, do you remember where it was?
We finished chapter 36, I think.
Yes.
Oh, no, we're farther than that.
No, we're further. We are on.
We did
We are
39.
40.
Yeah,
We
I
are
think-
40.
Right.
We're starting
I have
on
my marker there.
on chapter 40.
Yeah, but I have a question before we.
Yes.
Get
Sure,
it.
go ahead.
Right.
Okay, the very last line in 39. And it said, they finished all the work on the tabernacle and so on and so forth. And Moses blessed them.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the first time that Moses has initiated a blessing?
That we know about.
Well, yeah, I mean, but,
Yeah,
you know,
but maybe the rabbis know more about that.
Interesting question, but I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Moses,
a good observation.
Moses isn't ordinarily the one who does the blessings.
Right. That was,
well, the Lord, you know, the Lord blesses, you know, and then Moses, you know, does whatever, but.
Right, but
Moses-
Aaron and his sons are
Aaron.
commanded
Right,
to
right.
bless.
Yeah.
But you're right. I don't remember another time when that verb is associated, or that action is associated. You know, to Moses teaches them, Moses instructs them, Moses commands them, Moses inspires them, but I don't remember any other time of Moses blessing them.
This brings to mind something else that has been mentioned in the literature several times. What does this, after the building of the temple, Moses has blessed them. What's another way of phrasing this? He could have said, "Good job." Go ahead. Go ahead, Gail.
Oh, I was thinking about when God created the universe, or, you know, he said, he saw the work that it was good and he blessed it, so.
Yeah.
Right.
So in the literature that there is a little parallel at this. I don't know if we mentioned it last week or not. I apologize if we skipped over.
No, we did. We did mention the parallel to creation of the world and creation of the tabernacle and whatever. I did a very quick look. There's one. It's not Rashi, but one of the other major commentators says it's not that Moses blessed the people; it's that he blessed all the things. That's the them. But it's a unique use of that verb.
Yeah, it is. It is very interesting. It is. I'm trying to see. No, that was different.
It's coming back to me. There's an exchange, exchange in the midrash between Aaron and Moses of exactly what we're talking about. That Aaron says, well, "Wait a minute, why are you usurping my authority? My role is to bless the people in a religious sense, in a sacred sense." And Moses says, "No, you misunderstand. I'm blessed. I'm acknowledging the work. I'm officially stating, yes, it's done." Yeah, in that sense, like Marty was mentioning.
Interesting.
Now I found now when Isaac meets with Esau, he said, "Go and give me some meat or hunt for me, and I'll eat v'avarchecha, and I'll bless you in front of God, lifnei Adonai, before he dies." So I'm not sure if he blessed. Yeah, she says, "Bring me the hunt, what you have, and I'm going to eat, and avarchecha, and I'm going to bless you." So here we have a father blessing the son, even in the future, in front of God, lifnei Adonai. So I'm just looking if Jacob blessed the spot in which he said, "And God was here, and I didn't know," if he blessed that spot. I don't remember. I might find it.
Well, Rabbi Mary is looking for that. I'm going to ask someone to read verses.
Marty, Don has a hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah, Marty, sorry. just coming back to what we were discussing, in the Hebrew, in the English translation, Moses blessed them. So them is the direct object
Right.
thing. But in the Hebrew, how would that be understood in the Hebrew? What does them refer to?
I was
Well,
thinking
well,
exactly the same thing. By saying them,
yeah, it's open. It's just a plural. It means it's the direct object of the blessing, and it's in a plural
yeah,
sense. So it could be people or it could be things.
yeah. But if he were blessing the parts of the temple instead of the people, I think it would have
I
said
don't know
that.
how to spell it.
But by blessing them, I believe it means that he blessed the people who built the temple. If he had said, if you're referring only to the completed temple, he might have said, and Moses blessed it. So that's just my guess.
Yeah,
Okay.
no,
So
here
what
is
can-
interesting because it
But I
does
don't want to
bless
lose it. Oh, okay.
Okay. Wait a minute. Everybody's trying to talk at the same time. Chris, were you saying something?
No, I'm gonna be quiet. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay. And okay, Rabbi Mary started something and I interrupted. Go
Yeah,
ahead. And then I'll
what-
call on Grace
okay.
and Helene.
Then back to me again.
Okay. Okay. Grace, go ahead, and then Helene. And then
Whenever you're ready, just pull your call light, okay?
okay.
I just need to know what chapter we're in because the last I attended it was the 15th April, and
Okay, we are on
we're on 38.
40.
39.
Is it? Oh,
The end of 39.
oh yeah, that's what we're discussing. Don brought us back. Okay, that's right. Okay,
Thank you.
It's verse 43 in chapter 39, and that's what we're discussing. Rabbi Norman, what you
Okay.
have the floor?
The Midrash answers Don's question in the following way. Okay. That says we just don't know. It's one of those it's one of those compromise things. It says Moses blessed the work of their hands. Now, is work singular or plural?
Here is singular.
It's a singular word here, but if he's talking about all the work
I
that
was
had
less,
been
could
done,
be.
could it have been
Yeah.
plural? But so we just don't know. Understand it whichever way you'd like to understand it.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments about this?
Can I
Yes,
read-
Grace.
Can I read the version I have?
Sure.
All right. So it's 39 verse 43, right?
Yes.
And when Moses saw that they had performed all the tasks as the Lord had commanded, so they had done, Moses blessed them. So the question is, who is them? It sounds like he's blessing their tasks. Wouldn't that be, all the tribes that were there? The people? Because I thought the question was, is that the first time Moses passed a blessing to the Israelites? Wasn't that the question? Was that the first time recorded?
Yes, that's what Gail opened the discussion with that. That's right. And it's also, whether it is the tasks or the people, using the word they, you'd be right both ways. It's a good
But you know
observation.
what?
Wait a
we
minute.
discussed
Rabbi
a lot-
Norman had his hand up first. Just a second. Oh,
Yeah.
and
it's
Aline.
okay.
Yes, I have to leave because I'm weak now, but I'm stronger and I feel better. And I have to once again say belated happy birthday to Rabbi.
Thank you,
Whatever.
Helene.
And,
I received your
and
card.
and he is the grandpa of our world. He is the most celebrated grandpa in our world. And I thank him for being who he is.
Thank you,
So
Helene.
Thank you, Helene.
I
I
have
saw
to
your birthday
leave.
card. It was on the Bima when I arrived at Temple last night.
Oh,
Thank
you
you.
got the, good. I'm glad you got the birthday
Right,
card.
right.
Okay. You
Okay,
take
Rabbi,
Bye-bye, be
take care of
well.
yourself. When we were talking about the parallel in
no,
the literary structure, the between the story of creation and the creation of the ark, when God blesses the seventh day, it's not only God blesses, but it's Vayvarech Elohim et Yom HaShabbat, and makes it kadosh, makes it holy. So only God can add the sanctification part to what is, so blessing doesn't have the same power here. If we're using that parallelism, blessing doesn't have the same power that it does when God does the blessing and consecrating and sanctifying, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Rabbi Mary.
Now, what I wanted to point out is that we discuss a lot about every person, and then they become a group. Every person had another job. The melachot, the work was done by a lot of people, but each one had a role, an expertise in doing what they were doing. So maybe here we play into the community and the person, the individual. Just a thought.
Interesting. Good comments by everyone. I appreciate that. Okay, now we need to get started on our last chapter in Exodus. So David, if you would read chapter 40, verse 1.
Certainly. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe laemor, saying, on the first day of the first month shalt thou rear up the tabernacle of the tent of meeting. Do you want me to go on?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
And thou
Read
shalt
through verse 5.
and thou shalt put therein the ark of the testimony, and thou shalt screen the ark with the veil. And thou shalt bring in the table and set it in order of the bread that is upon it. And thou shalt bring in the candlestick and the light that lamps thereof. And thou shalt set the golden altar for incense before the ark of the testimony, and put the screen on the door to the tabernacle. And thou shalt. Yeah.
Okay. Several things. Does anything strike you in verse 2?
Talking
Not
about
really.
the calendar.
Excuse me?
He's
Because we
talking about
know
he's
Anyway,
talking about the calendar.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And that's what we always emphasize, that the first day of the year is in Pesach, and it's not in Rosh Hashanah. You know that we have four beginning of years, and this is one of them. This is the most important because we became people, a people.
Okay. Don and then Rabbi.
Well, probably the rabbi can help me here. But this is this must be aligned with the start of the year, this chapter. Otherwise, I doubt if God would have told Moses to do these things if the first of the year was still 6 weeks off. So I'm wondering if this is the alignment of the book of Exodus, or the end of the book of the Exodus, with beginning of the first year that all these things are in effect. I don't think I said what I was trying to say there. So is this the trigger for the beginning of the use of the tabernacle, the first of the year? Is that what we're reading here?
Could be.
Could, someone say could be. It's possible. As Rabbi Miri said, this becomes the first day of the first month, so that the months of the year are designated from the spring, from the time of not exactly the Exodus, but of the people really feeling indeed that they have their sense of freedom, they have their sense of independence, they're developing their society. And as pointed out in one of the commentaries in my book right here, it's 9 months to the day from their arrival at Mount Sinai. So so constitute, here's the birth. Where's that phrase? The birth of a nation, kind of thing. And 9 months exactly is when they can dedicate their new religious headquarters, so to speak, and the focus of their attention. I don't know enough. I'd have to defer to others on this session about lining up of the stars or whatever.
But
Yeah.
my question was, this is the first use of the tabernacle as far as I can see, and it still has its brand new stickers on it. And so is God telling Moses, okay, it's time to start using this equipment? And if so, is it like right now, this is the launch of the new way of worship?
Well, if you're following the narrative of the Torah as chronology, yes, it would be. But if you're following the notion of that this is an anthology and a collection of of stories and of incidents and of episodes and whatever that had been put into some kind of not really random, but some kind of different order as they were collected, then it's more coincidental. But if you're following the
The
narrative
other
for
thing,
chronology, yes.
and Don, what I usually about times in the Torah, I emphasize, for me, that the calendar is built upon an agriculture cycle. And we do know that the Torah, or we call it Chag Matan Torah, the Torah, the Sinai appearance would be in Shavuot, which is several weeks after Pesach. So there is a part. So they couldn't put in the time. If you want to go in a chronological era, if the Torah was given in Shavuot, how can this be before that in the tabernacle? We know that they put the stones, the luchot. It's a very interesting thing, the issue of the agriculture cycle. And as Rabbi Norman said, this is spring. And in Shavuot, how many weeks? Is 7 weeks from Pesach. They collect the what was sown in Sukkot. So it's an interesting thing how those things come about. And after that is Sukkot, not Rosh Hashanah. So, and what comes? So it's Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, and
Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur.
no. Sukkot is and it's going to Jerusalem. It's
Yes, that's
fourth
that.
Yota Regel, right.
Right. You're looking for
Aliyah
Hanukkah.
Laregel. Yeah. No. Christmas. No. We have the 4 seasons. It goes by 4 seasons. And Pesach is 1 season, and Shavuot is another season, 7 weeks after that. And then is Sukkot, and then I don't remember. But in any case, that's something that we have to bear in mind, the issue of the cycles of agriculture. And for the days, we have the cycle of the moon. I do not know, as far as I know, that had anything to do with stars. Although they appear at one point that we shouldn't worship them, but these are the 2 elements, I think, that were conveyed to the people, to us.
This is so specific. It's the first day of the first month. Is it, there's no.
Yes.
Of the second
Yeah.
year. It's not,
That's right.
it's the first month, meaning like the equivalent of quote unquote January. Okay. It's a new year. It's the first day of of month number 1 in the second year.
Okay, so Moses has to put this on his tickler file to remember.
Yep.
I guess. Okay.
I'd like to toss out something that I think should be thrown into the discussion, and that would be
Oh,
the solar cycle and its relationship to the seasons and a time for planting, new beginnings. Okay. David, would you like to address that a little bit? Whether it's because it would make sense if the sun was at one of its, halfway at one of its extremes.
Well,
Would you
yes, David would like to address something.
Please.
I think in a larger context, our Jewish faith has an enormous emphasis on paying attention to what's up in the sky.
Yes.
The moon is mentioned many times, but one cannot just go look up at the moon and not know where on the ecliptic it is on a particular night, what stars are nearby, what stars are out. And I've always believed that that our faith puts a big emphasis on that. It's true, we are not to worship them, but I believe it is also true that we are supposed to study them. And there's a difference there.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Well,
Excuse me, Rabbi Mary Gail has had her hand up.
Okay.
Just real quickly, one of the reasons that we may have problems following some of the minutia of the seasons is because we are an urbanized society.
Correct.
We really lost touch with the change of the seasons, its importance to agriculture, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not involved in it anymore. Both my sets of grandparents had farms. Now, they certainly were into the cycle and understood this.
Yes.
But me, being a city girl, never, I'm disconnected from that. I really am.
Yeah.
So unless you go camping or something, and that's one of the reasons I like to go out in the outdoors, but we've really lost touch. We really lost touch with nature, which is one of the reasons we abuse it. So.
Yeah, I agree. Rabbi Mary and then Michael.
Okay, first I'll answer to Gail that feels that we are disconnected from that. And I would say no, because you know that there are summer fruits and there are winter fruits. And that's why we emphasize to eat the local one, because if the grapes come from Chile, from the south, it's another problem. So we are connected, and that's why they did the time changes in America, because the sun sets in this hour and that hour. Somehow, even in the urban society, we are attached to agriculture and stuff that comes from nature. We don't realize that, but we are. And the other thing that, Marty, you're mentioning the issue of the solar, it was problematic, but I believe if Rav Norman will correct me, it's Talmudic time in which they realize that they want to put together the solar system with the moon system, and every few months, and it's not exact, it's like 19 months, it's crazy. There is another month in the Jewish calendar. It's Adar Aleph and Adar Bet.
That's right.
Right. So they correct for that. So we'll be, and that's quite late, because at this time they didn't give what for the solar system.
Okay. Michael, is it okay to let Gail respond, or did you want to add something at this time?
No, good. I'll let Gail go.
Okay.
Rabbi Mary,
I'm not
I used the
not
wrong,
important what I have to say.
I said we were disconnected. I know that we're connected. That's not the issue. I should have used the word aware. We are not aware that we're connected.
Right, we're not in that. You're right.
So we're ignorant. It's not a matter of not being, because obviously I believe everything's connected.
Sure.
Okay,
Sure.
thank you. Okay, can I ask Michael what, yeah, he's been patiently waiting for a while here.
Well,
Go ahead, Michael.
Anybody else want to take it now? I'll wait. Because what I have to say is not really that important, but I'd like to say it anyway.
Go ahead.
No, let Don go. That's okay.
Okay.
Just tagging on to that last conversation a little bit. We just closed out chapter 39 with the blessing. And if nothing else, it's a nice literary close, because right before it, there's a long enumeration of all the things that were completed. And so then Moses blesses it all, and then we can cut it off. It's kind of a nice literary technique. And now it seems to me we're putting it all into action, because up till now it was a construction phase, and everybody was working their butts off to get it done, but the tabernacle had never been used before.
Right.
So now it's being commissioned, and that's how it seemed. That's how I make it clear to myself. Okay, we finished, set up. Now is the execution. So, and that has to start somewhere. So what better point than the first day of the first month? I mean, that seems like it. So that's how I'm reading it.
Okay. And that's okay. It begs another question, but I'm going to save it for when we finish the reading today. Any further discussion on the first part of David's reading?
Well, what I wanted to say,
go ahead,
is this kind of a side note or a sidebar, that you could look at the moon and not take your eyes off it. And you can't, but you cannot do that with the sun. And it's remarkable that God gave us this ability so he could figure things out. And this is one of the remarkable things about God that has done for all of us over the years, over the centuries.
Thank you. Thank you. That was important, Michael. Any other comments? What about verses 3 through 5? Any comments about that? Well, let's read on. Maybe we'll get a hint about what this could be alluding to. So, David, why don't you read verses 6 through 11?
Okay. And thou shalt set the altar of burnt offering before the door of the tabernacle of the tent of meeting. And I like the idea that the tabernacle is called the tent of meeting, the tent of gathering. And thou shalt set the laver between the tent of meeting and the altar, and shall put water therein. And thou shalt set up the court ground round about, and hang up the screen of the gate of the court. And thou shalt take the anointing oil and anoint the tabernacle and all that is therein, and shalt hallow it and all the furniture thereof, and it shall be holy. One thing that, before we get into the discussion, is that this is such a beautiful echo of Hanukkah, where they are rededicating the temple.
Yes.
And I just love the connection there.
Very good. Okay. And verse 11, did you read that?
No, let me read 11. And thou shalt anoint the laver and its base and sanctify it.
Okay. It does this bring to mind anything? Remember, we've had the conclusion of the construction of the temple. Okay. God is not the temple, but the Mishkan, the portable temple, if you will. And they've done everything according to the plan that God set before the people. Moses then said, this is what you should do. And then the people did it. The 3 times everything is stated. And then it comes to a very nice conclusion. God enters the tent of meeting, and the presence of God is contained within. Nobody can get into that temple. And then Moses comes along and blesses it, and blesses the people who did all of this work, brought it together, a new community, a new beginning, as we've discussed. And now comes what, in my mind, suggests the first, and Don alluded to this, the first dedication of it. But also, what has been before has been concluded. And it includes certain things that appeal to the senses. I'm going to ask the rabbis a question. How often do we have a part of any ritual that ends one thing and begins another?
I cannot recall, but one of the things that we do the Kaddish to separate this from that.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I can say.
What else do we do?
We also,
another
we
ritual
also
service.
We also do Havdalah.
Yes.
At the end of Shabbat, between Kodesh and Chol
On-
between.
We don't do it unless we have a Sabbath. If we do it at the end of the Sabbath, Saturday evening,
Or you can do it on Sunday morning if
you
you
can
want.
do it
You can do
right.
it.
Sure.
You can stretch it. You can make
Mm.
your Shabbat as long as you'd like. You know,
But it's a ritual that's
it is
separate.
it is a ritual. There's also look. They recognize the importance of rituals, whether they're symbolic or whether it's an
Right.
actual um, physical behavior that was witnessed at least by the priest, if not by the elders or the whole population. When someone who had been sent out of the community because of what they call leprosy or whatever. But when someone was cleansed and came back into the community, there was a ritual. Et cetera,
Yeah.
et cetera. So having a formal ritual, uh, whether it's to, as you mentioned, whether it's to conclude or whether it's to add a particular communal recognition to a break or a dissolution.
Right.
That's something that's always there. Yes.
Yeah. It's either we've completed things or we have a new beginning,
Right.
whether it's a new week or new day, whatever how we want to look at it. Yes, Gail.
I have a question for the rabbis. If, say, we were going to build a new, temple synagogue here in Green Valley, is there a particular ritual that's traditional when you start having services there, or you've completed the building? Is there some kind of a special?
There would be both some kind of a closure ritual of the older building, and taking the Torah scrolls out, removing the mezuzah, things like that. And then similarly at the opening, there would be, and they usually do it with the symbolism of a wedding, like bringing the Torah scrolls in underneath the chuppah and things like that. But yes, there would be a symbolic ritual. It's not like there's a specific, pages 362 to 364 in the rabbi's manual that this is what you must do. But there are certainly templates to follow.
Oh, yeah. Very interesting. Yes, Don, please. Don, you're muted.
Sorry. I'm just taking a course in pagan religions. And if there's one thing they all have in common, it's rituals. Right?
Yeah.
Without the rituals, the pagan gods didn't answer. So, it was right from the beginning, step on a crack, break your mother's back. Everybody's got a ritual. So.
But it's in all spiritual gatherings. You have a system of, and it doesn't matter which religion or group or whatever. There's a way to do the service, whatever it may be. I'm using that very liberally. It's called other things in other groups, but there's a fixed way to begin and a fixed way to end, and then you go on, and it's sort of like the same thing here. This is like the christening of a boat.
Champagne.
Champagne. Oh, we're going to have anointments, anointing of people, and like that. So it's a very interesting thing that comes to mind. Yes, Michael.
I wonder sometimes if ritual and superstition kind of get intertwined at times.
That's a very good question.
Sure.
Very
Leads-
good.
That's right. What if you don't do the ritual? Okay,
I
It-
bet.
that's right. You know, that's right. So there's a whole bunch of things that stem from it. Very good observation, Michael. Very good. Yes, Don.
Yeah, and it's probably more like magic. You know, magic is a technique.
Well, yes, but also science and mathematics is the same way. You have a beginning and an end to each experiment. And the way and you have steps along the way when we break it down for the scientific principle. There's it's not a complete experiment if you eliminate one of those steps.
Right.
And that leads to lots of discussions in the different fields of science.
Right. Science involves causality, though, whereas magic is imagined causality.
But causality, whether you want to call it magic or not, whether you want to call it causality or not, it's the same principle.
Miracle.
There's a beginning and an end. Okay, to everything you do. It's the same thing in cooking. You have to line up all the ingredients, get everything ready, and then get to the right temperature in the pots or the oven or whatever. That's a ritual too.
That's
Yes,
why
go
my
ahead.
cake didn't come.
I'm sorry, what? Everybody.
That's why my cake didn't come out correctly.
There you go. There you go. Go ahead,
It's
Michael.
before and after. I would call it before and after.
Yeah.
You know, when you make holy the Shabbat, because before it was not holy.
Right.
So it's kind of, yeah, you're right, cutting
Yeah.
one from the other. You know what? I want to share with you. The first time I went to a synagogue, and it was in America, I didn't go to synagogues in Israel, and I saw when you remove the Torah from the Aron, from the ark, and you walk around, and people were kissing the Torah. I was first amazed, and I said, what's that about? Because my connotation was very much to Christianity and not to Judaism to do that kind of thing. And but everyone feels that that's fine. It's a ritual, and it was problematic to me, and I still don't do it.
But I just want Michael to say something. Go ahead, Michael.
I don't see that everything has what has a beginning does not have to have an end. There usually you see things that have a beginning and has an end, but not everything does have an end. And I would refer to the Torah. The Torah doesn't have an end. It continues immediately.
Yes.
See?
But we have a ritual that celebrates that
cycle,
that point in the cycle that, you know, to complete the circle, we have to do something. It's a good analogy in mathematics. It's the pie that completes the circle. Okay.
So therefore, if what is in the Torah, you see, the way I see it, what is inside the Torah, if the Torah doesn't have an end, then the way I see it, everything inside the Torah has no end. It continues.
Correct. That's very astute. It's very, very important to recognize that. That is why some people say that God used the Torah to create the universe.
See, it may appear that things would end, but philosophically, I don't see anything ending in the Torah. And for Judaism, in the Orthodox the Hasidim, they study Torah day and night whenever they're. I mean, it's almost like a fanaticism. It's a fanatic, and that doesn't end. If you're following Judaism at a high level, when you do mitzvahs don't end. You continue to do mitzvahs regardless of what they are.
We could have lots of things that we come up with that do have a cycle, but each time the cycle is completed, there's usually some sort of ritual.
It's like it's like a rest. You mentioned one time you have a rest in
music. That's right. In music.
Yeah.
When somebody says amen.
Yeah, see, that rest is actually a note.
That's right.
In music, it's a note, but it's not sounded.
Exactly.
See, it's not sounded, but it's a note to keep.
Yeah.
And the reason that is to keep the music, the timing, and the phrasing of the music going correctly.
Yeah. It creates tension, if you will.
A build-up.
Yeah. So anyway, any other, I don't want to belabor this point, but I thought it was an important discussion to have at this point, because so many other things that we do are based on this concept. Yes, Gail, please.
I was just going to mention in passing, really, talking about rituals, it's probably the biggest bone of contention within any group is how a ritual is performed.
Correct.
Where you remember, Marty, you and I, when we were on the ritual committee, I mean, the biggest fights were over, quote, rituals.
Right.
So interesting observation, but no comment aside from that.
That's exactly correct. But the point is that just because somebody wants to do it a slightly different way, it's what the intent is. It's an interesting discussion. Anyway, David, would you care to read verses 9 and 10?
Okay. Verse 9.
You shall take the anointing oil, or whatever you have in there.
And thou shalt take the anointing oil and anoint the tabernacle and all that is therein, and shalt hallow it, and all the furniture thereof, and it shall be holy. And thou shalt anoint the altar of burnt offering, and all its fenced vessels, and sanctify the altar, and the altar shall be most holy. And thou shalt anoint the laver and its base, and sanctify it. And thou shalt bring Aaron and his sons into the floor of the tent of meeting, and thou shalt wash them with water, if they can find any. And thou shalt put upon Aaron the holy garment, and thou shalt anoint him and sanctify him, that he may minister unto me in the priest's office. And thou shalt bring his sons and put tunics upon them. And thou shalt anoint them as thou didst anoint their father, that they may administer unto me in the priest's office. And their anointing shall be to them for an everlasting priesthood throughout their generations. Thus did Moses, according to all that the Lord commanded him, so did he.
Okay. Any comments about what David read?
I'll say, just like the question of of Michael, if a ritual is a superstition, how would you call just putting oil on everything that is holy? What's the connection between oil and holiness? And we know that the word Mashiach, the word the Messiah, is built on that as well. But I think that one of those questions might come up here. How is that holy?
Okay. So is it the ritual or the people doing the ceremony making it holy?
Well, they can make holy just by touching, but
Sure.
here we're talking about anointing with oil. Sorry.
That's a slick answer. Anyway, Grace, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I was looking at particularly verse 15.
Okay.
It says in this transliteration that I'm using, if I could see more properly, it'd be helpful. So, that they may serve me as priests.
Mm-hmm.
The me being God. Whom is the me referring to in that statement?
It's capitalized. Me is capitalized. So
it's not in
English.
it's not here.
In English, it's capitalized, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not here in the translation I have. It is not capitalized.
Okay. It's God speaking.
Okay. Just wanted to get my brain collected a little better.
That's all right.
Thank
Any
you.
other
Thank you.
observations, comments?
Well, I think when you get to the question of that Rabbi Miri was asking about
Yes.
why the oil, I don't know why Davka, why it's oil, but it's something that is easily identifiable. Okay, he says, aha, that like on Ash Wednesday, the Catholics that put the ashes on their forehead, and when then they walk around public they easily identify that they have participated in this ceremony, in this ritual, and as one who was faithful to that particular calling. Um, uh, I mean, there are all kinds of alliterative and mystical and Hasidic word games that are played with the word shemen, which is oil, or with the Mashiach, which is an anointing, and and things like that. But it obviously was a gesture, ritual, again, custom, that had meaning to the people in those days. But like many other, going back to our little previous conversation, going back a little bit, is that many of the rituals, the symbols, the ceremonies, the practices, we have no idea why they started in with the particular detail. So why anoint someone's head with oil as opposed to having them wear a particular crown? Some peoples did wear the crown. We're going to see several beautiful crowns on the new king in Westminster Abbey next week, things like that. So different peoples have different ways of approaching it, and in many cases we've lost the actual reason historically of sometimes it's very humorous of why it started, but there's the Tevye thing of, well, we do it because it's tradition,
Tradition.
and it
That's
has
right.
power, and it has
Yes, so yeah,
meaning for us,
yeah.
just because we're reaffirming that tradition.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. And what comes to my mind, and as you said, I don't know where it started, but the word that comes to my mind is designated in front of more people. This is holy. This is
Right.
holy.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
And why we never asked. Yeah.
it's also very interesting that in addition to anointing with oil, they had to be washed. Well, it's anoint them as and to serve me, but before that, bring the Aaron, tell Aaron to bring his sons forward to the entrance of the tent of the meeting and wash them with water. It's almost like a mikveh. That's in verse 12. It's almost like it's saying it's like the bride going to a mikveh. It's a conversion, changing from, getting rid of other impurities so that it's a concept of washing.
Well, it's the quote unquote, it's the holy water
That's
that
right.
was in the laver.
That's right.
Right. It's not just the water that they may find in the spring that would have been
Exactly.
like from a mikveh.
But it's another ritual
Sure.
using to cleanse, to be pure before God. You think whatever,
Yeah.
or
And there's a hierarchy. There's a hierarchy
yes,
that that as whether it's on the level of getting closer to Aaron and his particular generation, or the sons or the grandsons, or whether it's going further inside and inside and inside and inside until finally there's the Kodesh Kodeshim, there's the Holy of Holies. There's only
right,
one piece of it that's designated as Holy of Holies.
right,
Everything else is just holy, if you can even get to that point.
right. Excellent commentary, Rabbi.
I have a comment.
Oh yeah, go ahead, David.
Yeah, sorry. Two comments. The first, it kind of keeps on reminding me about what the rabbis Mary and all of our rabbis have said. Reminds me of that famous line from Macbeth, anoint thee, which the unfed run and cries. But my main comment is a different one. It has to do with something made holy. And, and like from Fiddler on the Roof, why do we do it? I don't know, but it's tradition. But when I was 11 years old, my sister gave me my first Bible. And here it is. I don't use it for reading, but it's here. But on the very first page of it, when I was 11 years old, I wrote down my name and address, and then these words, made holy in my room, 7 o'clock, December the 10th, 1959. And I don't know what an 11-year-old designed as a procedure to make it holy. Probably some prayers, probably did a Shema. But I did something back then when I was 11.
Yeah.
And I still have this old Bible that used to belong to my sister.
Very, very nice. Yes, Gail.
I was just thinking about the significance of oil. It's very important in the Middle East. And if you've ever been to Israel, you know there's olive oil in everything. And it's also used as a preservative. It's used for light. They used to use olive oil, to make light. You could see. So it's a very important thing in the Middle East, oil. And it still is. But I'm thinking that's probably why they used oil in the temple.
But there's also different grades.
It's, all kinds of.
There's different grades of oil.
Yes.
And in this case, it's the pure beaten oil. They didn't have the word kosher yet, but.
Very good. Any other discussion here? Well, let's see what happens. Okay, David, if you would read on. I guess we're at verse 20.
Okay, verse 20. And he took and put the testimony into the ark, and he set the staves.
No,
on
we're
the
not quite
ark.
there yet. We're 17. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Oh, 17.
Sorry for
I
jumping in.
apologize.
okay,
It's my
put
fault.
the common verse. Excuse me. And it came to pass on the first month, in the second year, on the first day of the month, that the tabernacle was reared up. And Moses reared up the tabernacle, laid its sockets, and set up the boards thereof, and put in the bars thereof, and reared up its pillars. And he spread the tent over the tabernacle, and put the covering of the tent above upon it, as the Lord commanded Moses. And he took and put the testimony into the ark, and set the staves on the ark, and put the ark cover above upon the ark. And he brought the ark into the tabernacle, and set up the veil of the screen, and screened the ark of the testimony, as the Lord commanded Moses.
Well, I thought everything was finished already. What's he doing?
Is this another author that
Well,
they
he's-
have
he's-
added
no,
into? Gail, does your
It's finished, but
commentary
it still
say
needs to be
anything?
set up and plugged in and everything. That has
Yes,
to be done with each use. No, that I understand.
it's almost like the two versions of creation of man,
Very much.
which is in the book of Genesis. You know, different ways is so I was wondering if in someone's other commentary, you know, especially Gail has a commentary that frequently goes into it. Is this the P or the E interpretation? And therefore was this added on because it's so similar to what we would be discussing in the book of Genesis. So it's a task. I should have warned everyone so they'd have a book out at the top, at that turn to that point. But I think it's a very important, you know,
It's all the same.
observation that the rabbi makes.
It's all the same source.
All right. But why two versions? Okay.
There is no time. There's no time marking in Torah,
That's
I
right.
believe. So they are
Good point.
reestablishing, you know, again, you know, the ritualistic behaviors and presentation of the holy art. I just got that from Rabbi Mary. She's said that a few times, and that's
Right.
my understanding. Right or wrong doesn't matter. I'm just, that's what my brain is telling me to say.
Okay.
Or think.
המביא דבר בשם אומרו, מביא גאולה לעולם. When you quote someone that said that, you bring what's the word?
Redemption.
Redemption to the world.
And to me,
Thank you.
To me, it brings us back to the Shema, where it specifically says, you shall remind you of this in different areas on your head, on your arm, on your hand, and on the doorposts of thy gates. And so even though the house or the observatory or whatever is finished and it's built, every time you walk into it, you're rededicating it. So I think this is very appropriate, this particular part of it. It's different from the construction. It refers to each use of the tabernacle. That's my opinion.
Okay, very good. Yes, Rabbi.
Yeah, up in Michigan, about 15 years ago, we did a reconstruction and a rebuild of part of our of the temple building, um, and the the intention was to restructure so that we had more classrooms, and also to fulfill the what they call the LEED, environmentally sound, construction policies and environmentally true, and things like that. And so there was the construction team and the builders
Yeah.
and the engineers and the electricians and everything like that. And they did all their work for about 14, 15 months. But before we could actually move in, not only the building inspectors from the township, but the architect himself
Mm-hmm.
came in and literally double checked every socket, every fix-it, every wall, to make sure that because it carried his name along with it,
Right.
that this was something that Joel Smith of Newman Smith Architects, this is something that they were responsible for. And I in a sense, I kind of see that is his role. Even though Moses, it was Bezalel who was the architect, but Moses
This was
ultimately,
right.
what's he, the general contractor? I don't know,
Yeah.
but
The inspector.
before it's turned over to Aaron and the priests, that he had to make sure, he had to make that everything was tight, all the fixings were right, everything, they used the proper materials, and whatever, because he was the one who was relating God's instructions, and he wanted to make sure that it was done according to the blueprints, so to speak, that God had given to him, that he could pass on. So that's the way I understand it.
Yeah. Very well stated.
Go ahead, Gail.
Oh, I was just going to say, this tent of meeting actually is the blueprint for building the temple in
Right.
Jerusalem
Yes.
too.
Yes,
So that's the other reason for all the detail, because it
that's
really
right.
is.
Excellent. Yes, Rabbi Mary.
Well, I was reading here in Stone, which is the Orthodox part, and that includes Rashi, that all those pieces, the curtains and the wood, including the tablets, were not in place yet. And it was Moses that took, even the tablets, he took them from this box and put it in the tabernacle. He took the planks and he put them, which makes a lot of sense. All the parts were sitting there, and the big guy is the one that's going to put them in place. Rashi agrees with that.
Okay. Any other discussion there? David, if you would just continue reading.
Okay, and I think I'm on 24. And he put the candlestick in the tent of meeting over against the table on the side of the tabernacle southward. And he lighted the lamps before the Lord as the Lord commanded Moses. And he put the golden altar in the tent of meeting before the veil. And he burnt thereon incense of sweet spices as the Lord commanded Moses. And he put the screen of the door into the tabernacle. And the altar of burnt offering he set at the door of the tabernacle of the tent of meeting, and offered upon it the burnt offering and the meal offering as the Lord commanded Moses. And he set the laver, between the tent of meeting and the altar, and put water therein, wherewith to wash, that Moses and Aaron and his sons might wash their hands and their feet thereat. When they went into the tent of meeting, and when they came near unto the altar, they should wash, as the Lord commanded Moses. And he reared up the court round about the tabernacle of the altar, and he set up the screen of the gate of the court. So
Okay,
Moses finished the work.
okay.
Yeah,
Any-
so he
any-
was doing the.
You were going to say something, Rabbi Mary? Would you repeat that?
Well, I can now, I was thinking that when he puts what they call here the candles, actually was oil. So the role of oil was quite interesting and important in the tabernacle. We have the oil to light, and there was, I don't know, I think that for the bread that they talk about, maybe they make it with oil. So it will be like challah, I don't know. But making light is the oil. And anyone that said Hanukkah, that's the oil.
So the olive and olive tree plays an important role in the construction of the temple. Does that show up elsewhere in Torah? Olive branch.
Branch.
Yeah, in Noah.
Yeah, that's what came to mind, and it's the at least in England in the English language, the olive branch has a lot of meaning behind it,
Peace.
with
Yeah.
peace and serenity, but making peace. You can get, it's used symbolically. Any other ideas for it? So the olive is the fruit of if you will, of the tree that makes peace.
And you know what, Marty? If I recall when Shlomo built, and this is the second temple, he uses the big trees from Lebanon. I don't remember their name.
The cedars of Lebanon.
The cedar of Lebanon. And I don't think he mentioned to use the olive trees, which I'm not surprised, because the olive tree, the wood is so hard that very difficult to do anything with it. But you're right, the fruit of the olive trees was very, very important.
Okay. Does anyone want to make comments about in the late winter we celebrate the trees and fruits
To be Shvat.
to Bishvat,
Yeah.
and olives are mentioned again, along with
Yes.
the nuts and things like that. So it's one of
But
those.
also in Shavuot, yeah. In
Yes.
the giving of the Torah, there are 7 types of thingies, and one of them is the olives as a centerpiece of importance to nutrition.
Very good. So I know we digressed a little, sometimes we do, but I thought it's an interesting subject when it comes to the anointing of everyone. So the anointing process, it sort of separates these people out. Also, it's in addition to making them holy, along with that comes an awesome sense of responsibility. It's like a graduation ceremony. Okay, and you can think of lots of other events that when you subscribe to it, it is an awesome task that you're going to be undertaking at that point. Whether you have a graduation ceremony, receiving that diploma, it's not. It's a new beginning, but you've gone through the ritual of everything, but it's awesome. You now have a tremendous responsibility. In a wedding, it's the same concept of accepting a new sense of responsibility. We do, even in government, when you say take the oath of office, or the military and you take the oath for the military, it's an awesome responsibility, not to be taken lightly. And I'm using that as a build-up for what's going to come up in the next few weeks. Okay, what happens when you take a shortcut? Okay, that will come up in a few weeks. But so it's the same thing happens in the kitchen. We used the kitchen before. If you don't follow the directions on how to bake a cake, you don't get a cake. And something goes wrong and you have to take the responsibility. Yeah, I didn't follow the directions.
Will you please stop reminding me of that?
Go to the bakery. Go to the bakery.
But you know, in all politics aside, when people have a particular duty to perform, they have to accept when they take an oath of office or things like that, that they're doing it for a particular purpose. And you would hope that they're doing it for the right reason, not just for their own personal gain. And it's a tough thing to in any situation. Even that cook in the kitchen, you're making the assumption that the person there really knows what they're doing. Yes, Gail.
Just want to make a quick observation. When you put together all the ingredients for a cake and it doesn't necessarily look like a cake, it still is a cake. So
it is. You call it by a different name.
Yeah, I've done a few of those. Yeah.
What do you think happened when the first upside down cake was made? It was the excuse that somebody who had dropped it and then turned upside down.
Like I say, it doesn't look like a cake, but it's still a cake.
That's right. That's right. But it's a good point. Anywho, David, why don't you read on?
Okay, I'm going to use the old Bible.
Okay, sure.
These last few verses. Then a cloud covered the tent of the congregation, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. And Moses was not able to enter into the tent of the congregation because the cloud abode thereon, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. And when the cloud was taken up, from over the tabernacle, the children of Israel went onward in all their journeys. But if the cloud was not taken up, then they journeyed not till the day that it was taken up. For the cloud of the Lord was upon the tabernacle by day, and the fire was on it by night, in the night of all the house of Israel, throughout all their journeys. And I believe that takes us to the end of Exodus.
It does. Any comments about this? It's a very powerful ending.
I think so.
Rabbi Mary. And
Well,
then
I use in this passage the issue of, as a person who suffers from depression at times, when there is a cloud over you, a cloud that doesn't let you see clearly, that you are suffering, don't make decisions to walk. I mean, don't make decisions to do anything. Wait until that cloud comes up and then walk. And then you have a fire also that will ignite your power to do it. And I think that there is a saying about the issue of cloud. I think in English, I don't know, meunan, something like that.
Very good. Very well stated. Anyone else? Yes, Gail. Oh, excuse me, Gail, before you do, Grace had her hand up before. I almost forgot. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. We were talking previously about completing the circle,
Uh-huh.
and that what was just read reminded me of there's the completion of the ritual, the symbolism,
Mhm.
and even with science and the numbers and the dates and the timing of it all. So that's all I wanted to say.
Good point. Gail, please.
There are 3 words we're supposed to say when we end a book of the Torah. Hazak,
Yes. Chazak, chazak, chazak.
Hazak, hazak, venit hazek.
Yes. Rabbi Norman.
Yeah, it has often been pointed out, not so much the illusion, which I agree with, and I'm appreciative to Rabbi Miri about the depression and the cloud and the fog and the depression, but that the book of Exodus begins when the children of Israel are they're oppressed, they're slaves, they can't see God, they can't see any hope in the future or whatever, and then it ends with the specific statement that what is happening with the dedication of the tabernacle and everything is it's B'nai Kol Yisrael, that they're all eyewitness to this.
Right.
They've been eyewitnesses to the miracle, to the plagues, to the crossing of the Red Sea, to Sinai, to the manna, to all this. So the people that were born out of darkness have now seen the light, kind of thing, is the phrase that is
Right.
emphasized at the end here.
Martin Luther King was very, very good at this because it buried in his speech is this very discussion.
Right.
Anyone who has seen someone with depression or has gone through depression can experience this. But the same thing with slavery. This story begins with slavery. Okay. Depression is a form of self-imposed slavery. If you think about it, and it takes you down, just like doing it to someone else. Every time you would like to do something else, you bring it down, and that's the slave story. And
I'm
now,
not sure I like the phrase self-imposed.
well, I shouldn't have used.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
a good
right.
I was thinking about that myself when I said it.
Yeah.
Didn't come out right. It's from within. It's from within.
It's
And
a personal rather than a collective.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Thank you for correcting that.
And when you're grieving,
It's the same
is the
thing.
same thing, just
Yes.
see it.
I don't know if people are aware of this. There is a very lengthy poem called Down in the Valley. If you start it and you start thinking about it, down in the valley so low. And what comes after that? Hang your head over. It's a very depressing situation. And it deals with it has something like 20 stanzas to it. And in it, it's an imprisoned black slave who's one of the stanzas is, like a bird in a cage, dear, it's like he's relating this to his wife or a significant person. And Maya Angelou takes that phrase and writes poetry, Bird in a Cage. I know why the caged bird sings. Okay. And then there are like 3 stages. It's defining it, just like in Torah, it's definition, how you get out of it, and then now you are free at last. The words from Martin Luther King. Okay.
Thinking of that.
But it's a fascinating formula, which is often not addressed because we can enslave ourselves unintentionally. We can do things like it. This is why I say that this is a very powerful book. And the ending here, it touches it. It touched me. My dad suffered from severe depression, and I know what he went through, and I know the stages that it took, and it's hard work to get out of that. And this whole book of Exodus is about hard work and uplifting to create a more uplifting experience in life. So that's what I get out of this book, and I don't hear that too often it's not usually addressed that way. So I don't know. Yes, Rabbi Norman.
I'm guessing, Marty, but check some of the commentaries and the stories about Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
and I will. I
Yeah.
take
In
these.
some of the stories, not so much what he wrote, but the stories about Martin
What
Buber's
is it?
Right.
and whatever that have about Nachman of Bratslav.
Okay. Thank you. Suzanne, you were going to say something. Suzanne, I think you're muted.
Yes, I was muted. Sorry about that. This also suggests to me about having faith in God, because they would know that when the cloud was there that God was with them, like in a physical sense.
Yeah.
And with the cloud and then the fire at night. But they also knew that when God would leave, that they would, have to continue on their journey. But they had to have faith that God will return to them at the next stopping place, wherever that might be, and that they had to have faith that they had to go to the next place and they would get there, and when they got there, that God would physically be with them again, that they weren't just wandering around blindly, so to speak. So it shows that that they were developing their faith, that God would return and always be there for them.
And sometimes the lessons for that are hard. It's very hard to change behavior and like that. The task that we've been reading about for the past several months, very daunting work. But if you find the right people to do the work for you, makes it a little easier for it to all come together the way you want it. So it's a very I just think that it's a fascinating book in Torah. Yes, Michael.
Oh, this was very interesting to me about when you made the point you could enslave yourself. My musical partner, James Hudson, a remarkable talent, and absolutely the most remarkable talent I've ever had the privilege to perform with. We performed together for over 36 years in Southern California. He um, he was born on Corn Island, and nobody's ever heard of it. It's a little small island off the coast of Nicaragua. It's uncharted, and and I didn't learn this, Marty, until this past year.
Oh.
Even though he was my musical partner, I didn't know anything about him for over 30 years. It was all hidden, and it was his upbringing. He was very, very tough. He wandered most of his life throughout Nicaragua and Central America and into South America a little bit. Came here, and then we hooked up. I didn't know anything about him. And today, he suffered, it's just unbelievable. He suffered a heart attack and a stroke, and he cannot finger the frets on his guitar, and he's not able to sing, and he sang perfectly in 3 languages.
Wow.
Yeah, remarkable. So I just have to get that off of my chest. And I always wanted him to come with me to come here so we could do a performance at the temple. But it never.
Now okay. No, you spoke about this fellow before. Yes.
Yes, and it never happened. And I love this man so much. He's so great, and it pains me. I call him all the time. He's still in the San Francisco area, but he's suffering something terrible. And he's always been by himself, and I'm worried about that. So anyway, on this Saturday morning Torah class, I just have to ask God to help him.
Yes, I think that's very, very kind of you. Yes.
What's his name, Michael?
James Hudson.
Hudson.
Okay. I will say a prayer for him.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
David wants to speak.
Yes, David,
Thank you
please.
so much. Thank you. I want to pick up on something that Marty said earlier about about depression, because that affected me too. As I was reading the closing verses of Exodus, the idea, it was fascinating, it was uplifting, and it was at the same time very depressing. And you all know that I have been subject to depression over most of my life, never more than in the last 6 months. And I wanted to share something important with you about that. And that is that after losing Wendy last fall, and really up until now, the thought has entered my mind a number of times, do I want to go on living? And the conclusion that I reach each time is this, and that is that the decision to live is harder than the decision to die. Because once you die, you're dead, you have no more responsibilities, don't owe anybody anything, you don't have to pay taxes. If you decide to live, you have to do all those things. It is a tougher decision. So, and that is the decision that I take. And somehow that came to me in these last few verses of Exodus. It's kind of a reaffirmation of life.
Yes.
And that's what I wanted to say.
Yes. That is the book of Exodus. You summarized it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments about it? By the way, I did find something that was mentioned before with Solomon in the temple. the here's a quotation. From verse 25, verse 8, excuse me, chapter 25, verse 8, let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. This is God speaking to Moses. The promise was fulfilled again when Solomon erected the temple in Jerusalem. Quote, and it came to pass when the priests came out of the holy place after setting it up, that the cloud filled the house of the Lord, so that the priests could not abide to minister because of the cloud. For the glory of the Lord filled the house of the Lord. And that's in First Kings chapter 8, verses 10 to 11. And you wanted me to bring things in. What? Yes.
I must speak about it because I did when we found that quotation.
Yeah.
You'll make me a mikdash and I'll leave betocham. And I want to remind that betocham could be inside them and among them. And in no translation, they put the inside. Sorry, Marty, because it's a very powerful verse for me.
Yes, it is. And I want to thank everyone. This has been a very good journey to get through these two books. It's taken us 5.5 years. But it's okay. I did a lot of thinking about what was mentioned last week. And what I thought, several people did not want to read verbatim the book of Leviticus. I'll call on you, Don, in a second. And so I would, because of all of the sacrifices. But I thought that it may be of interest, after reading some of the book of Leviticus, the sacrifices are relatable to certain things, to events. And so I said, well, why don't we discuss the events where the sacrifices we don't have to mention the sacrifices, but I think the messages are still there, whether it's to say thank you, whether it's to ask forgiveness, whether I did something wrong or may have done something wrong. All of this is outlined in a very specific order. So without mentioning the sacrifices, maybe we can still go through why repentance is important, using that as my guide so we can go through it. And that it may turn out to pose some very interesting discussions, sort of like what we had in the past 15-20 minutes. So I thought it would be reasonable to go through, because it comes up in the celebrations of the high holidays. So by the time we go through the book of Leviticus, it may be time for the high holidays. It may put everyone in that frame of mind. It may be, but I thought that may be a reasonable compromise, so that we don't lose sight of what's really going on, what this oath of taking on responsibilities is, not just for the priests, but for the people, for the community of Israel. And it becomes, and it's like a change in the way of life that we're going to be reading on. about. Anyway, so that's what I came up with, and we can experiment with it. Yes, Don, I'm sorry I interrupted.
No, no, that's fine. What I'd like, if possible, we just finished Exodus. And what I'd like is some discussion, at least, on what have we just read? You know, what was Exodus about? How do we emerge from that? Because Genesis was centuries long in its time scale. Exodus was decades. Yeah, it's a huge-
Centuries. Let's call it centuries. Okay, whether I know we had that debate, but would you like to do that next week? I had prepared that early on. I usually at the end of every book, I think it's nice to review it. Would people like to start that off with that next week?
Yes.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, and
That's a
then we
good
can
idea.
shift over. That's fine. I think that would be an excellent suggestion. I'm just trying to make people happy. Yeah, I go with the flow, but it's a perfectly okay. I had prepared, I did this with the book of Genesis. We spent a session dealing with that as well. So it would be reasonable to do it with the book of Exodus and just as a review. Because I'm sure there are a lot of other commentaries that people would like to bring up too.
Great.
Good, we will do that. Any other comments? So I just want to say thank you for allowing me and helping me get through this journey to go through 2 books. For me, it has been very enlightening to have all of the different opinions and the traditional interpretation, other types of interpretations, and things that just pop in from anywhere. It really is a good feeling. All right. So with that, unless anyone has any announcements, upcoming events. I know Ricky did a good job of doing that last night. So with that, Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Marty. Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom,
shalom.
everyone.
Take care.
And
Have a
thank you,
great week.
Marty. Thank you very much.